Alexander the Great, born in 356 BCE in Pella, Macedon, was the son of King Philip II and Queen Olympias. From a young age, he showed intelligence and courage, famously taming the horse Bucephalus at 12. Tutored by the philosopher Aristotle, Alexander studied philosophy, science, and the arts, nurturing his ambition and understanding of leadership. He also trained as a warrior under his father, who expanded Macedonian power and established a strong army. When Philip was assassinated in 336 BCE, Alexander, just 20, succeeded him as king. After swiftly consolidating power and securing Macedon's control over Greece, Alexander set his sights on expanding his empire eastward. In 334 BCE, he launched an ambitious campaign against the Persian Empire, winning decisive battles, including those at Granicus, Issus, and Gaugamela, which ultimately led to the fall of the Persian Empire under King Darius III. With unmatched military strategy and charisma, Alexander extended his empire to Egypt, where he founded Alexandria, and further east into Central Asia and India. Alexander sought to integrate Greek and Persian cultures, adopting Persian customs and promoting a policy of cultural fusion, which spread Hellenistic culture across his empire. However, in 323 BCE, at the age of 32, Alexander died in Babylon under mysterious circumstances, possibly from fever or poisoning. His early death left his empire without a clear successor, leading to its division among his generals. Alexander's influence persisted long after his death, and his campaign spread Greek culture across the known world, influencing art, language, religion, and philosophy in the regions he conquered. This Hellenistic period shaped the course of Western and Middle Eastern history and established Alexander as a legendary figure of military genius, inspiring leaders for centuries to come. Julius Caesar was born in 100 BCE into the prestigious yet financially strained Julian family, claiming descent from the goddess Venus. Despite his noble lineage, Caesar faced early challenges as his family's political influence had dwindled. However, the young Caesar demonstrated ambition from a young age, and after his father's death, he furthered his studies and gained military experience. His political career began with religious offices and then military assignments in Asia, establishing his reputation as a skilled soldier and a great public speaker. Caesar rose to prominence through the Roman political ranks, forming the first triumvirate in 60 BCE with Crassus and Pompey, who were two powerful leaders. This alliance gave Caesar the influence he needed to secure his role of consul in 59 BCE. He then became governor of Gaul, where his military campaigns expanded Roman territory and brought him immense wealth and popularity. His conquest in Gaul strengthened his position and created a loyal army. Caesar's ambition and power strained his relationship with Pompey and the Senate, eventually leading to civil war in 49 BCE. He famously crossed the Rubicon River with his army, declaring war against the Senate's orders. After defeating Pompey and consolidating power, Caesar was appointed dictator for life in 44 BCE. He enacted significant reforms, reorganizing the calendar into the Julian calendar and addressing debts. However, Caesar's rapid rise alarmed many senators who feared his power threatened the Republic's democracy. On March 15, 44 BCE, he was assassinated in the Senate by a group of conspirators, including his friend Brutus. His death led to the end of the Roman Republic, eventually giving rise to the Roman Empire under Augustus. Caesar's legacy had a profound impact on Roman governance and also the Western world, with him remaining one of the most influential figures in human history. Cleopatra VII, the last active ruler of Egypt's Ptolemaic dynasty, was born in 69 BCE into a line of Macedonian Greeks who had ruled Egypt since Alexander the Great's death. She was highly educated, speaking several languages, and uniquely identified with Egyptian culture, a move that set her apart from her predecessors, who largely retained Greek customs. Following her father, Ptolemy XII's death, Cleopatra, at age 18, became co-ruler of Egypt with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, whom she eventually married as per Egyptian custom. However, their relationship was strained, and she was exiled in a power struggle. Cleopatra returned to power in 48 BCE with the support of Julius Caesar, whom she charmed during his stay in Egypt. Their alliance restored Cleopatra to the throne, and together they had a son, Caesarion. After Caesar's death in 44 BCE, Cleopatra aligned with Mark Antony, Caesar's former ally and powerful Roman leader, both politically and romantically. Together, they sought to expand their influence, envisioning a vast Eastern empire, which was a threat to Rome's power. Under Cleopatra's rule, Egypt became a wealthy and powerful state, and she sought to preserve its independence in the face of Rome's growing empire. Her Her influence extended through her relationships with Caesar and Antony, shaping Rome's political dynamics. However, Octavian, who later became known as Augustus, was Antony's rival, and he declared war on Cleopatra and Antony. In 31 BCE, they were defeated at the Battle of Actium, and facing capture, Cleopatra took her life in 30 BCE, with Egypt falling to Rome. Cleopatra's legacy continued on due to her intelligence, beauty, and political skills, and her life has inspired countless works of art, literature, and history, making her one of the most influential people to ever exist. Genghis Khan, born as Temujin around 1162 on the Mongolian steppes, rose from a challenging childhood to become one of history's greatest conquerors. His early life was marked by hardship as his father, a tribal chief, was poisoned when Temujin was young, leaving his family vulnerable. After their tribe abandoned them, Temujin faced poverty and betrayal, enduring kidnappings, enslavement, and also infighting. These struggles shaped his resilience and determination, instilling in him a vision of uniting the Mongol tribes. In his 20s, Temujin began gathering followers, building alliances, and rising in Mongol society through a mix of loyalty and fierce retaliation against rivals. He introduced reforms that emphasized merit over family ties, earning the loyalty of diverse tribes. By 1206, after defeating numerous tribal leaders, he was proclaimed Genghis Khan, meaning the universal ruler, and set about consolidating Mongol power. Genghis Khan's conquest began with neighboring empires, including the Shisha and the powerful Jin dynasty of northern China. Known for his military innovations and psychological warfare, he was able to overpower larger armies with his smaller forces. His campaigns expanded across Central Asia and into the Middle East, creating an empire that would stretch from the Pacific Ocean to the Caspian Sea. Beyond his military skills, Genghis Khan established a legal code known as the Yasa, and it promoted trade, protected religious freedom, and created a communication network called the Yam, enabling efficient governance. After his death in 1227, the empire continued to grow under his successors, becoming the largest land empire in history. Genghis Khan's legacy shaped Eurasian history, bringing in cultural exchange along the Silk Road and influencing warfare and governance. Joan of Arc, born in 1412 to a peasant family in Domremy, France, rose to fame during the latter years of the 100 Years' War between France and England. As a deeply religious child, she claimed to begin receiving visions at age 13, in which saints and angels instructed her to support Charles VII and help liberate France from English control. Despite her lack of military training and young age, Joan's conviction led her to approach Charles, the French Dauphin, in 1429, asserting she was divinely appointed to lead his armies to victory. Initially met with skepticism, Joan eventually gained the support of Charles and his advisors after a thorough examination of her character and intentions. Dressed in men's armor, she joined the French army at the Siege of Orleans, where her presence and encouragement revived French morale. Within 9 days, French forces secured a critical victory, marking a turning point in the war. Joan's successes continued, and she played a crucial role in leading Charles to Reims, where he was crowned king, fulfilling one of her divine missions. However, in 1430, Joan was captured by Burgundian forces, who were allied with the English, and handed her over to the English, in which they saw her as a political and spiritual threat. Accused of hearsay and cross-dressing, she was tried in a biased court and ultimately burned at the stake in 1431 at age 19. Joan of Arc's death transformed her into a symbol of French unity and nationalism, and in 1456, she was declared innocent by the Catholic Church, and eventually in 1920, she was canonized as a saint. Joan's legacy endures as an emblem of courage, faith, and patriotism, inspiring countless works of art and literature, securing her place as a national heroine of France. Henry VIII, born in 1491, was the second son of King Henry VII and Elizabeth of York. Initially not expected to rule, he received a broad education in theology, languages, and the arts, and displayed a strong interest in jousting and hunting. When his elder brother, Arthur, died in 1502, Henry became heir to the English throne, ascending as king in 1509 at age 17. Early in his reign, Henry was seen as a charismatic leader who strengthened England's alliances through marriage and diplomacy. He married Catherine of Aragon, his brother's widow, to maintain England's alliance with Spain. However, after years without a male heir and a growing interest in Anne Boleyn, Henry sought to end his marriage to Catherine. When the Pope denied his request, Henry took radical steps, breaking from the Catholic Church and establishing the Church of England, with himself as its head. This act, known as the English Reformation, marked one of the most significant shifts in English history, leading to the dissolution of monasteries and a transfer of wealth and power to the crown. Henry married 6 times in his quest for a male heir, and he had 3 children who survived infancy: Mary I, Elizabeth I, and Edward VI. His son Edward succeeded him, but Henry's daughters would each eventually rule as well, with Elizabeth I's reign marking a golden era for England. Henry VIII's rule transformed English society and governments, establishing a stronger monarchy and national identity. His separation from the Catholic Church set the stage for religious and political shifts that would shape England for centuries. Though often remembered for his brutal methods, Henry left a lasting impact on English history and established a powerful legacy that resonated long after his death in 1547. Elizabeth I, born in 1533 to King Henry VII and his second wife, Anne Boleyn, had a tumultuous childhood marked by political intrigue and danger. Her mother was executed when Elizabeth was just 2 years old, and she was declared illegitimate. Despite this, Elizabeth received an extensive education in languages, literature, and politics, becoming one of the most knowledgeable women of her time. Her childhood prepared her for the complexities of court life and instilled in her a cautious approach to power. Elizabeth ascended to the throne in 1558 at the age of 25, following the deaths of her half-brother, Edward VI, and her half-sister, Mary I. Mary's reign had been marked by religious persecution and political tension, and Elizabeth inherited a deeply divided England. To stabilize the realm, she pursued a moderate religious policy, establishing Protestantism as the state religion, which, while allowing for some tolerance, an approach known as the Elizabeth religious settlement. Elizabeth's reign, often called the Elizabethan era, became a golden age for England. She strengthened the economy, encouraged exploration, and supported the arts, leading to English culture flourishing. Elizabeth faced challenges, including threats from Spain, resulting in the death of the Spanish Armada in 1588, which cemented England's naval dominance and strengthened Elizabeth's popularity. Elizabeth never married, earning the title the Virgin Queen, and carefully maintained her independence and control over her image, using her single status as a diplomatic tool. Her reign of 45 years brought stability and prosperity, creating a strong sense of national identity and setting the stage for England's future global influence. Elizabeth I's legacy as a wise, resilient, and politically intelligent ruler has made her a symbol of strength, and her leadership profoundly shaped England's path forward. She passed away in 1603, marking the end of the Tudor dynasty and the beginning of the Stuart line. George Washington, born in 1732 in Westmoreland County, Virginia, was the eldest son of a landowning family. His father's early death left Washington without formal education, but he learned surveying and gained practical experience managing the family's estate. This exposure to the frontier developed his resilience and understanding of land and military strategies. His ambition and work ethic led him to the Virginia militia, where he served in the French and Indian War, earning a reputation for bravery and leadership despite facing setbacks. By the 1770s, tension between the American colonies and Britain grew over issues like taxation and representation. Washington, already a respected landowner and former military officer, became an advocate for colonial rights. In 1775, he was appointed commander-in-chief of the Continental Army by the Second Continental Congress, chosen for his military experience and ability to unite the colonies. Washington's leadership was crucial during the Revolutionary War thanks to his strategic victories. His surprise attack in the Battle of Trenton in 1776 and his endurance through the harsh winter at Valley Forge boosted morale. In 1781, with French assistance, Washington's forces defeated the British at Yorktown, securing American independence. Following the war, Washington returned to private life, but in 1787, he presided over the Constitutional Convention, helping to shape the new government. In 1789, he was unanimously elected as the first president of the United States, serving 2 terms. He set numerous precedents, including the peaceful transfer of power, and emphasized national unity. Washington's influence extended beyond his death in 1799, with his character and leadership becoming symbols of American ideals. Often called the father of his country, his legacy shaped the nation's democratic principles. Napoleon Bonaparte was born in the year 1769 on the island of Corsica, which had recently been annexed by France. He was the second of 8 children in a modest noble family, and his early education took place in France, where he studied at military academics, showing great promise in math and artillery. Napoleon's rise to power began during the French Revolution, a time of political chaos and the collapse of the French monarchy. He quickly rose through the military ranks, earning recognition for his leadership and tactical skills, especially in the Italian campaigns of the late 1790s. In 1799, he staged the coup d'etat, overthrowing the government and establishing himself as first consul of France. In 1804, he crowned himself emperor, solidifying his control over the country. As emperor, Napoleon implemented vast reforms, and his Napoleonic Code standardized laws across France and influenced legal systems worldwide. worldwide. He modernized the French economy, established the Bank of France, and reformed the education system. Militarily, he expanded the French Empire across much of Europe, defeating coalitions of European powers in battles such as Austerlitz and Jena. However, his ambition led to overreach, and his invasion of Russia in 1812 ended disastrously. By 1814, a coalition of European powers forced his resignation. He was exiled to Elba, but returned in 1815 for a brief period, known as the 100 Days, before his final defeat at the Battle of Waterloo. Afterwards, he was exiled to the remote island of St. Helena, where he died in 1821. Napoleon's influence extended far beyond his lifetime, and his legal and administrative reforms had a lasting impact on European governments, with his military tactics still being studied to this day. Abraham Lincoln was born in the year 1809 in Hardin County, Kentucky, to a poor frontier family. His early life was marked by hard labor and limited formal education, but he was self-taught and developed a passion for reading and learning. In 1830, his family moved to Illinois, where Lincoln began his career as a lawyer after serving in the state militia during the Black Hawk War. Lincoln's rise to national prominence came through his opposition to the expansion of slavery, and he served in the Illinois state legislature and later in the U.S. Congress. His debates with Stephen Douglas during the 1858 Illinois Senate race, though he lost, showcased his eloquence and firm stance against slavery, earning him national recognition. In 1860, Lincoln was elected as the 16th President of the United States, representing the newly formed Republican Party, which opposed the spread of slavery to new territories. As president, Lincoln faced the monumental challenge of leading the country through the Civil War, and his leadership during this period was marked by his determination to preserve the Union at all costs. He issued the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, declaring that enslaved people in Confederate states were free, shifting the war's focus to the abolition of slavery. Lincoln also delivered the Gettysburg Address, a defining speech that reaffirmed the nation's democratic ideals. In 1865, just as the Civil War was drawing to a close and the Union emerged victorious, Lincoln was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth. His death profoundly impacted the nation, but his legacy endured. He is widely regarded as one of America's greatest presidents, having preserved the Union and ending slavery. His leadership, humility, and dedication to justice continue to influence American politics and civil rights movements long after his death. Winston Churchill was born in 1874 into a prominent British family at Blenheim Palace. Despite his privileged background, Churchill struggled academically and he had a troubled childhood. He eventually attended the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst, where he excelled and began his career in the British Army. Churchill gained early fame as a war correspondent and military officer during conflicts such as the Second Boer War, where his daring escape from captivity made him a national hero. He entered politics in 1900 as a conservative member of parliament, but later joined the Liberal Party, holding key positions such as the First Lord of the Admiralty during World War I. His role in the disastrous Gallipoli campaign damaged his reputation, but he continued his political career, eventually rejoining the Conservative Party. Churchill's defining moment came in 1940 when he became Prime Minister during World War II, and under Churchill's leadership, and also through his resilience and inspiring speeches, Britain was able to stand strongly against Adolf Hitler. He played a crucial role in forming the Allied coalition with the United States and the Soviet Union, leading to the defeat of the Axis powers. His famous speeches, like "We shall fight on the beaches" and "Never was so much owned by so many to so few," bolstered national morale during the war's darkest days. Although he lost the 1945 general election, Churchill returned as Prime Minister from 1951 to 1955. His influence extended well beyond his time in office, shaping the post-war world and warning against the rise of the Soviet Union during the Cold War. Churchill's legacy as a defender of democracy and freedom remains prominent, and he is remembered for his spirit and leadership during one of history's darkest times. Joseph Stalin was born in the year 1878 as Yosip Jugashvili in Gori, Georgia, which was at the time part of the Russian Empire. He grew up in poverty, the son of a cobbler and a washerwoman, and he attended a church school, briefly studying at a seminary to become a priest, but he was expelled for revolutionary activities. Inspired by Marxist ideals, he became involved in the underground revolutionary movement against the Russian monarchy. Stalin's political career took off after the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution, which overthrew the Tsar and brought Vladimir Lenin to power. Stalin worked closely with Lenin and held several key roles within the Communist Party, including Commissar of Nationalities. After Lenin's death in 1924, Stalin maneuvered to consolidate power, outmaneuvering rivals like Leon Trotsky. By the late 1920s, Stalin had become the unchallenged leader of the Soviet Union, and his rule was marked by rapid industrialization, collectivization of agriculture, and political repression. His 5-year plans aimed to transform the Soviet Union into a global superpower, but they also caused widespread famine, particularly particularly in Ukraine, where millions died in the Holodomor. Stalin's reign of terror included purges of perceived enemies, mass arrests, and executions, consolidating his authoritarian control. During World War II, Stalin led the Soviet Union in its fight against Germany after Hitler's invasion in 1941. The Soviet victory, especially in the Battle of Stalingrad, was a turning point in the war, and afterwards, Stalin expanded Soviet influence in Eastern Europe, setting the stage for the Cold War. His death in 1953 ended a brutal era in Soviet history. He left behind a legacy of industrial and military might, but also immense suffering due to his totalitarian policies. Despite this, he is still admired by some for transforming the USSR into a global power, though others remember him for the millions who perished under his regime. Franklin D. Roosevelt was born in 1882 to a wealthy family in Hyde Park, New York. His family's fortune allowed him to receive an elite education, attending prestigious institutions like Groton School and Harvard University. Roosevelt's distant cousin, Theodore Roosevelt, served as the 26th U.S. president, inspiring Franklin's own political ambitions. In 1905, he married Eleanor Roosevelt, who would become an influential partner in his political career. Roosevelt's political career began with his election to the New York State Senate in 1910, and he later served as Assistant Secretary of the Navy under President Woodrow Wilson, which gave him valuable leadership experience. In 1921, at the age of 39, Roosevelt became sick with polio, which left him paralyzed from the waist down. Despite this setback, he persevered, and by 1928, he was elected governor of New York, where he gained national attention for his progressive policies aimed at combating the Great Depression. In 1932, Roosevelt was elected President of the United States during the height of the Great Depression. His New Deal policies, which included massive public work programs, financial reforms, and social safety nets like Social Security, fundamentally reshaped the American economy and government. Roosevelt's leadership helped restore confidence in the nation's institutions during a period of severe economic hardship. He was also a pivotal figure in World War II, and after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, Roosevelt led the US into the war, forging key alliances with the United Kingdom and the Soviet Union to defeat the Axis powers. His diplomacy helped shape the post-war world, laying the groundwork for institutions like the United Nations. Roosevelt was the only US president to serve 4 terms, but he died in office in April 1945, just before the war's end. His leadership during 2 of the most challenging periods in American history left a huge legacy, specifically his efforts to expand the role of government in protecting citizens' welfare and ensuring global stability. Adolf Hitler was born in the year 1889 in Austria to a modest family. His early life was marked by an authoritarian father and the death of his mother when he was just a teenager. Hitler aspired to become an artist, but was rejected twice by the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna, and during this time, he developed strong nationalist and anti-Semitic beliefs, which later shaped his ideology. In 1914, Hitler volunteered for the German army during World War I, where he served as a dispatch runner and was wounded. The defeat of Germany in the Treaty of Versailles in 1919 deeply affected him, fostering a belief that Germany had been betrayed by internal enemies, especially Jews and communists. In 1919, Hitler joined the German Workers' Party, which would become the National Socialist German Workers' Party. His powerful speaking skills and radical ideas quickly propelled him to leadership, and by 1923, Hitler attempted a coup to overthrow the Weimar Republic, but it failed and he was imprisoned. During his time in jail, he wrote Mein Kampf, outlining his vision for Germany, including extreme nationalism and anti-Semitism. In the 1930s, amidst economic instability and widespread discontent, Hitler gained popular support by promising to restore Germany's strength. In 1933, he was appointed Chancellor of Germany, and once in power, he dismantled democratic institutions and established a totalitarian regime, implementing aggressive policies to expand German territory and exterminating Jews, leading to the Holocaust. Hitler's expansionist policies triggered World War II in 1939, and by 1945, after causing the deaths of millions and plunging Europe into chaos, Hitler's regime collapsed. He ended his own life as the Allied forces closed in on Berlin, and after his death, he left a legacy of devastation, war crimes, and genocide, with the world vowing to prevent such atrocities from ever happening again. Nelson Mandela was born in the year 1918 to the Timbu royal family in the small village of Mvezo, South Africa. His father was a local chief, and his early life was deeply rooted in tribal customs and traditions. Mandela attended mission schools and later the University of Fort Hare, where he was introduced to political activism. After moving to Johannesburg, Mandela studied law and became involved in the fight against racial oppression, joining the African National Congress in 1944. Mandela rose to prominence as a leader in the struggle against institutionalized racial segregation discrimination imposed by the white minority government of South Africa. In the 1950s, he helped organize non-violent protests against policies created by this government, but after they violently suppressed these movements, Mandela adopted more militant tactics. In 1961, he co-founded the ANC's armed wing to disrupt this racist regime. In 1962, Mandela was arrested and sentenced to life in prison for sabotage and conspiracy. He spent 27 years in prison, mostly on Robben Island, becoming a global symbol of resistance to racial oppression. Despite harsh conditions, he remained committed to his cause and continued to inspire activists within South Africa and around the world. Mandela was released from prison in 1990 as international pressure and internal unrest forced the regime to negotiate. He became the leader of the ANC and worked closely with President F.W. de Klerk to establish multiracial elections. In 1994, Mandela became South Africa's first black president, leading a new era of reconciliation and nation building. After stepping down in 1999, Mandela continued advocating for peace, human rights, and the fight against HIV and AIDS. He remains a global icon of justice, equality, and resilience, with his legacy enduring as a testament to the power of forgiveness and the triumph of the human spirit over oppression. Thank you very much for watching this video, and if you learned something, make sure to leave a like. Comment down below your thoughts on any of the leaders I discussed in this video, and subscribe if you would like to see a part 2 or more videos like this one. Thank you again, and goodbye.